Spring training games begin this weekend. Today, we discuss the biggest questions going into them.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Thursday, February 19th, 2026. Thank you so much for making Locked On Tigers your first listen. Every single day, we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. We are almost so back. I feel like I say we're almost back about like 7 different things. Like pitchers and catchers reporting, we're so back. And then full squads, we're so back. And then spring training games, we're so back. And then opening day, we're so back. Like there's a lot of levels to being back. But this is one of the more, I don't want to say monumental. That feels too dramatic. But one of the big checkpoints in pre-opening day calendar. And that is spring training games beginning. They kick off on Saturday. Cater Montero starts for the Detroit Tigers in the first spring training game. We talked about that a little bit yesterday. We will obviously continue to discuss that tomorrow, but I wanted to do this today, a day early and $1 short, because I want to give a little bit of breathing room to anything that may come out on the last day of camp before spring training games begin, right? So we have a chance to talk about those tomorrow because there's usually some, bigger news and notes right before games start. So today we will talk about the biggest questions that the fan base has, that the organization may have, that I have. Which doesn't really matter, but for the Detroit Tigers as games begin to be played yet again, and that is unbelievably exciting. I want to start off with just the offense in general, and I know that's very broad, but I think it's fair. And the one thing that I will say before we even go a little bit deeper into this is that this is a question I don't think is answered in spring training. Everybody wants to know, I guess, is the offense actually going to take a step forward without a single bat being added? Like the front office is, kind of selling the fan base and it certainly is kind of banking on, really, more or less. Or is the offense going to look like it did in the last 2 months of last season? Or is the offense going to be the same as it was in the first 4 months of last season? Like there's a lot of levels to that. And I in no way, shape, or form do I think that question is going to be answered in spring training. There is a 0% chance we're rolling into opening day, even if everybody rakes. Like nobody's rolling into opening day like, well, we crushed spring training, so we're definitely, the offense is definitely going to be good this year throughout 162 games. Spring training is beautiful and wonderful, but it's important to remember that the opinions that are formed, not all of them, but there's a lot of opinions that are formed, or maybe I should just say observations that are had in spring training that by May, you have forgotten about and completely disregarded because they're not actual games, right? It's not real. It's a figment of your imagination. We have seen time and time again players suck in spring training and then have great seasons. We have seen time and time again people have great spring trainings and then be DFA'd by May. Like it just... Spring training is not an actual indictment on talent level or on the production that you are going to receive from a player. Now, does that mean I want everyone to suck? No, obviously not. You are still ramping up for opening day, but it's an opportunity to work on specific things. And I think that is kind of my message going into the rest of this episode And as we go into spring training, it's not just, really, it has nothing to do with, to be honest with you, numbers. I don't really care about numbers too terribly much in terms of like spring training stats for individual players. I do care about, a pitcher like Bo Brisky, for instance, right? If he starts offering an elite slider, I'm going to freak out even if he has a 9 ERA, because I've been begging for him to showcase a really good East-West pitch for a while. Casey Mize, if the splitter looks good, we're all going to be happy regardless of what his spring training ERA is, dude. You get my point? Riley Greene. If there's some walks and not a ton of strikeouts, we're going to be happy regardless of what the counting stats or the batting average or whatever looks to be. Defense, a huge one, because there's not as many defensive metrics as offensive. How do players look defensively? There's a lot of players with huge question marks in that regard. So I wanted to start off with that one because I think it paints the picture for the rest of the questions for the show, but also kind of just spring training in general, at least through my eyes. I'm not saying that like how I view it is gospel or anything. You view the game of baseball however you want to, but that's just kind of my opinion of spring training at this point. It's a way to work on individual things and get ramped up for opening day. It's not as much of an indictment on what you're actually going to see production-wise from players. So, what other questions do we have before spring training games begin? Third base is obviously a big one. I think that one has much more to do. Well, I mean, if you want to call a single player out, it's Colt Keith more than anybody else, obviously, right? I mean, it is Colt Keith's job to lose. Now, I can also remember going into spring training last year and saying that third base was Jace Young's job to lose. And he lost it in a very big and dramatic way, right? Not that like anything happened, but like just in the fact that he has not hit major league pitching in any capacity so far in his career. So I think that this is certainly Colt Keith's job to lose, and Colt Keith has hit major league pitching. I think there's another step. I think we all want to see another step taken with Colt Keith and his offensive production. But the biggest question in the spring is, are we confident with him defensively at third this year? Even if the offense doesn't take another step forward, and he's just a mid-700s OPS guy again this year, if he can do that and not be a pure like platoon player and actually hit lefties decently well like he has throughout his entire professional career before last season, if he does that, again, similar numbers to what we've seen, but plays even remotely average third base defense, he'll be a valuable asset and he'll start almost every game at third. But there's a lot of ifs in there. If platoon, if good enough defensively, if. Shout out Justin Herbert. But like, you know what I mean? I think that's just a situation where Herbert didn't deserve that stray. That's on me. Shout out Herbo. But I think that is something we can take from spring training. Does he look like he's going to last defensively at third base this year? The offense, we'll see when games start counting. Okay, that's the tip of the iceberg. We got a lot more to talk about. We will do that right after this. First, though, got to talk to y'all about our friends over at FanDuel. Have you ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? Well, FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into a reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. You use your profit boost at any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for two. That's right, flights, tickets, the whole experience in a trip for two. If you're already looking at the board and thinking about which team can make a deep run, this is the perfect time for you to lock in. I love futures this time of year, whether you're picking a team to win the NBA championship or to grab a conference title. It adds a layer of excitement to every game down the stretch. And now, not only can you pick cash, can your pick cash? One day I'm going to get that right. But it could also send you to the NBA Finals. So visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for a chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Segment 2, Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in, as always, making us your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day, and we will, of course, be back tomorrow as we preview baseball games. And that is an absolutely beautiful sentence to say out loud. So thank you for tuning in and making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. If you want to take your listenership and your fandom to the next level, you can join the Everydayer Club by going to lockedonpodcast.com/everydayer and joining said Everydayer Club. You'll get ad-free audio of this show. You will also get access to a Everydayer Club Discord server where other Everydayer Club members are in, as well as hosts of the show like myself. So again, Locked On Podcast.com/everydayer and join today. If you use code SPRING, you can get your first month for free. Today we talk about the biggest questions heading into spring training games that will begin on Saturday. Talked a little bit about third base, Colt Keith. I think Matt Vierling is a relatively big question this spring. And again, the offense, we'll see how that develops over time. I don't want to make it sound like I'm not taking literally anything from offense either, right? If somebody goes 0 for 50 with 50 strikeouts, obviously that's a problem. Like, I don't want to, simple it down too much or make it sound like it, like, la-di-da, like, just doesn't matter, whatever you do offensively. But again, it's individual stuff. Riley Greene, it's K-rate. Kerry Carpenter, please walk. Like, you know what I mean? There's certain specific stuff, like Zach McKinstry, don't swing at curveballs on your ankles. Like, you know what I mean? There's individual stuff there more than overarching numbers. I think with Matt Vierling, it's less about the offense with him, as well as just A, health, and B, where he plays in the field. And we talked about yesterday, in the first part of spring, it sounded like he's going to get a lot more of an opportunity in corner outfield, and then he will kind of move around as spring training comes along. I'm excited for Matt Vierling to be back. I'm excited and hopeful that Matt Vierling can be an asset to this team again, because he was one of the more valuable assets to that 2024 team in the last 2 months of the season. Now, another question that everybody is asking is, we have a three-headed monster in the bullpen. That's awesome. Who's going to be the closer? Evan Petzold asked this question to AJ Hinch this week, and AJ Hinch's answer was, one of them is my closer. So I think that, to me, that already answers this question. Like, we haven't even played a spring training game yet, and we already have an answer. I take that as at face value. Maybe that's naive of me, but like we've seen how AJ manages bullpens over the last, what is it? Is it year 5 of AJ Hinch already? That's crazy. Time flies. But we've seen how he manages bullpens, right? This is not a manager that has a traditional bona fide closer necessarily, especially when there is not a clear reliever that is just arms and legs above everybody else talent-wise. And so I think that is a testament to what this bullpen, how this bullpen has been formed, in the sense that it's going to, not even a closer by committee necessarily. I think that's also disingenuous. I think it's going to be based on matchups, as it always is with AJ, but I think it's also going to be based on just availability, right? You now have the flexibility where you can burn through Kenley Jansen and Will Vest in one game and still have Kyle Finnegan at full health in the following game. That is such a luxury. And I think that is more so kind of how I interpret his comments than like, when all three are healthy, who are you going to in the ninth? We'll find that out in the spring, I'm sure. We'll find that out on opening day if it's a close game and the Tigers have a lead. But I think that it more speaks to the flexibility that AJ will now have in planning a series or planning a week. You know, this guy in the bullpen is not available this day. This guy's not available. Well, you can have two of your top bullpen options not available on any given night and still be able to throw out an MLB closer level talent. And that is something that not too many teams can say. They're the first team ever in the history of baseball. They're the first team ever to have three different players coming off of 20 save seasons in the year prior to the upcoming year. And that's really exciting. Bullpen depth is obviously a big question. That one's a little bit more broad and also kind of self-explanatory. We talked about that going into camp even a couple of weeks ago. There's just a ton of questions that are surrounding what the bottom 3 or 4 spots in this bullpen looks like. The top 4 is pretty much set in stone. You got your big 3 in Finnegan, Vest, and Kenley Jansen. Then you have Tyler Holton, obviously your highest leverage lefty going into the season and going into camp, whatnot. The bottom 4 is kind of all up for grabs. I would imagine Brant Herter is going to get a long look and is probably a favorite to get one of those spots, especially if he's going to be more like groomed to be a reliever than like this, you know, we have no clue what your role is going to be for this upcoming season thing that he's gone through the last couple of years. But we'll see how he looks in the spring. He had a lot of command issues last year. But the biggest thing is there's just a million non-roster invitee like relievers. There's a million of them. You could make an entire 26-man roster just out of non-roster invitee relievers. So are any of them going to step up? I know it's like super broad and like not very analytical or specific at all, but I mean, that's just kind of the situation that's presented itself. Are any of those guys going to step up and you know, work their way onto the roster? In a similar breath, obviously the prospects. I've said my piece on this a lot, so we don't have to spend too much more time on it. I don't think any of the big name prospects are going to make the roster. Certainly, like Rayner is obviously not going to make the team out of camp, but I don't think any of Clark, Briseño, or McGonigal are going to make the team either. As we've said it a million times, McGonigal is really the only one that I think might have an outside chance, but I just don't see it. There's not a ton of at-bats ahead of the AA level, at the AA level or higher, I should even say. There's still some questions about the defense, and I think, again, this is like a don't shoot the messenger situation. I would put McGonigal at shortstop on opening day and not feel bad about it at all. I don't love the shortstop situation the Tigers are rolling into opening day with. But I don't think that's what it's going to do, and I'm not going to lose sleep over it either. That kind of transitions us into the next question, which is shortstop. What does shortstop look like in the beginning part of the season? There's always going to be the clamorings for McGonigal, and especially if he hits in AAA this season, people are going to be clamoring for him to get called up, you know, probably by the end of April. So that's always going to be there. What does shortstop look like until McGonigal is ready? Is it just going to be the Javi and McKinstry platoon, where it's just, you know what, these guys were serviceable last year? The one will hit lefties, one will hit righties, and there you go. Bob's your uncle. Where did that saying come from? Bob's your uncle. No, he's not. Actually, well, depends on who you ask, I guess. But I think that's a really fair question. Or is it going to be a revolving door of like a lot of people? I'm not really sure who else would even be in consideration for that, though. I think we have 2 guys that can play major league caliber shortstop consistently. Do we trust the offense of what that platoon duo can provide? Both of those guys had great first halves and terrible second halves. I guess even more specific on Javi, is he going to play center field still? If Parker can't hit lefties, is Javi going to be the platoon in center? Well, if he's the platoon in center, which I've seen a lot of people speculate, then who on God's green earth is going to play shortstop when a lefty is on the mound? I think Javi's going to play a lot of short this year. And I don't foresee him playing nearly as much outfield as he did last year. I think that was a by necessity situation more so than it was like we love doing it. But we'll see. That's another question I have in spring training. Got a few more things I want to go over. We'll do that right after this. First, though, got to talk to y'all about our good friends over at Indeed. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill is still sitting open. When the pressure is on and you need the right hire, this is a job for sponsored jobs. Indeed sponsored jobs help you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for: skills, experience, location. So you're not just hoping for the right candidate stumbling across your post one day. Here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all of your boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. You can spend less time searching, more time actually interviewing candidates who check all of your boxes. There's less stress, less time, and more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. And listeners of this show will get $75 sponsored job credit to help give your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Third and final segment, Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in as always. What are the biggest questions heading into spring training games being played? I've already talked about some of them a little bit more in depth than others, like the Kerry Carpenter, can you draw a walk thing is much more than just a passing comment to me. That's something that I care a lot about. Same with Riley Greene and raising the walk rate and cutting the strikeout rate, right? Like just swing decisions for Riley Greene, I think is really important this spring. I think Drew Anderson's a pretty good question. Just how does he look? This is a guy that they've given, potentially 2 years if everything's picked up, and $7 million a year. That's not nothing, and has pitched in foreign leagues for the last, couple of seasons. And so is this a reclamation project that is going to be super successful? Is the stuff really good? Is it much better than it was when he was pitching stateside last? Or is this a guy that we're going to look around and go, oh my goodness, like what is happening? So I think that's a pretty fair question. His role as well, is he going to be more of a long reliever, or are they going to try to pencil him in to get some starts here and there? We will see all of that, I'm sure, in spring. He's another guy with Cater Montero that I expect to get a lot of innings and start some games, even if he's not going to be a part of the opening day rotation. Parker Meadows, a big question. Mostly with that one, it's just health. I know that everyone wants to get to the bottom of, can he hit consistently at the major league level or not. That's just, to me, that's how do I word this without getting yelled at? That is very important. It is the most important thing. We know that he's fast. We know that he is a good defender. The most important thing with Parker Meadows is, can he hit major league pitching consistently? I do not think that decision will be made, or that opinion, what's the word I'm looking for? That question, I guess, will be answered from now until opening day. That's all. I think that he's going to be the opening day center fielder. I think, unless he just looks completely and utterly terrible at the plate, I think he could hit 200 in spring training. He's going to be the opening day center fielder. Like I think that they're going to give him regular season major league at bats in center field. Mostly, I say that not even really a testament to him and my unwavering belief in him that everyone makes fun of me for. But I think that it's also much more to do with just the fact that they don't have another option unless they're going to put Clark on the opening day roster, which I don't think they're going to do either. Wenceel Perez is a big question for me. I think he's very quietly a guy that maybe isn't a guarantee to make the roster. Not that I'm saying he won't make the roster either. Obviously, he has an inside track too. But just it's amazing to me how quickly a lot of people forget just how much the fan base was at his throat the last month of the season. Now, he didn't hit well, and that's why. But, like, he was on a terrible cold slump the last month of the season, and I feel like everyone's just, like, completely forgotten that. And it's just like, yeah, like, obviously he'll make it. Like, I feel like he still has something to prove there. It would always be good to see him improve defensively as well. And then Jahmai Jones, as you know, the lefty platoon guy. The thing working against Jahmai Jones, he's the left-handed pitcher platoon guy. He's a righty. The thing working against him is that we have yet to see him be even remotely serviceable defensively. And the Tigers are not going to keep around a guy that gives them zero positional versatility if he's not excelling at another area. Now, last year, he was, right? He had an OPS over 900 last season. That is why he stuck around and was on, the roster and the playoff roster, et cetera, was because he had a phenomenal year at the plate. If he keeps doing that, then so be it. He had a great spring last year as well, right? A testament to how, spring training can still be offensively, an ability to like showcase offense. But because he is, really in his major league career, and certainly for the Tigers last year, so poor defensively, and really only can play corner outfield, even if he is to play somewhere in the field, he better rake. Because if he doesn't, I think that there are a lot of guys waiting kind of right outside that roster spot, Ha-Yul being a big one, that are kind of right on his heels. So Jahmai Jones even making the roster is kind of a big question for me. I still, in roster projection 1.0, I had him making my roster, but I think that he's much more of a kind of 50-50 split heading into games played than maybe some people give it credit for. Ha-Yul, a big one. Trey Cruz, a big one. A switch hitting guy that draws walks and plays like 6 to 7 different positions. There's a lot of enticing things in that profile. And I know a lot of our beat writers have kind of been talking about him more and more lately as well. So we'll see what he does. We already kind of talked about, obviously, the pitching. One person by name. Obviously, I mentioned Cater Montero, I think, is one of the bigger names yesterday, so I won't go down that rabbit hole again. But I think Troy Melton is a big question mark going into spring training. Is there anything he can do to make the team? Are they going to prioritize him being a reliever just to get him on the major league roster? Or are they going to send him to AAA so that he's stretched out and developed as a starting pitcher, despite the fact that he, stuff-wise is probably major league ready? I think that that's what's going to happen. And honestly, I would not be mad at all if that was to happen. But maybe they look around and go, this is too good to pass up as a reliever. Bo Brisky, again, talked about yesterday, won't go back down that rabbit hole. But another very, very big question for me is just how he looks after barely having pitched in the better part of a year. One last name I will leave you with as kind of somebody that I have my eyes on is Sawyer Gibson-Long. Really hoping that he can be healthy and hopefully the updates we get from Sawyer Gibson-Long throughout spring, he's on the injury report yet again, can be positive. I'm not even sure how much we'll see him necessarily in games. But just a guy that has had a really rocky last couple of years and was so exciting when he first debuted before the injuries started piling up. I would like to see some good updates from him. Ty Madden, another big question. So I guess I'm not leaving you with Sawyer Gibson-Long. But Ty Madden, again, barely pitched last year, is a guy that was a former, not first-round pick, but in a compensation round pick, right? Ahead of the second round, if you will, and went to, Texas, SEC school. They might have still been Big 12 when he went there. But regardless, you get my point. Big school with a good baseball background and is finally healthy again. And, maybe there's a spot for him in the bullpen as well. Thanks for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. And we will, of course, be back tomorrow previewing some baseball games, baby. Peace and love. Going to therapy's dope. Let me know what your biggest questions are going into spring training games. We'll talk tomorrow. Go Tigers.